In today's session, my book of the day is by someone that I think is very inspiring, someone very motivating in his style. But more than anything, someone that I believe has a really unique gift when it comes to the art of empowering people and teaching. My book of the day is The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I'm reading from my Kindle, and I want to start by reading a statement in the first page of the book. I found this statement to be very interesting, but also very profound. Grant says, "Anyone who suggests to me to do less is either not a real friend or very confused." Now, what a way to start a book. In today's session, I'm going to share with you some of my thoughts on the book, but also some of my insights on what I've been able to learn and apply, and hopefully will continue to apply as I continue my journey in this unique adventure we call life. For those of you who perhaps haven't been part of a book review that I've done previously, perhaps I should start by giving you an insight as to what you should expect. I tend to read books that can make me a better person. So my book reviews are normally based on books that I find interesting, fascinating, or books that I find that I'm using the curious part of me to understand a little bit more. And what I try to do is extract some sections, what I found profound, what I found enlightening from the book, and I share those thoughts. I don't give you a full picture of the entire book because that would be, in a way, using too much of your precious time. The intention is to give you perhaps an overview, and if it's a book you haven't read before, then you can go and get the book and read the book yourself and get the experience for yourself. In today's session, looking at the 10X Rule, I want to start by saying that I think it's a book that everyone should read for a number of reasons. This is not a recommendation that I make lightly, but I believe individually that we all believe that we can do more, and we know that we can do more. We know we can be more. We know we can have more, but there are some unique scenarios that hold us back. This book is like having a really tough coach shouting in your ear every single step of the way as you train. It comes in two parts. You can either get the hard copy, or you can get, I should say, the written copy, not the hard copy, the written copy in electronic or paperback, or you can get the audio version. I like the audio version a little bit better than I like the written version for a number of reasons. In the audio version, you get to hear Grant's voice, and he has a unique style. He has a voice that you can listen to for hours without getting irritated. But more than anything, he puts in all the nuances. He allows his spirit to flow. So there are certain parts of the audio that are not in the book. So he flows. He gets to a point and he rants. Then he comes back and he continues to read the book. Then he deviates and he explains why he perhaps included that section in the book. So it's a little bit more of an interactive. It feels like you're being talked to by the author himself. So for those of you who don't have the book, I think the audio version is perhaps a good buy. If you can get both, obviously, it's great to have it. Now, I like to start by saying this. In the book, you'll find information. You'll find inspiration, you'll find education, you'll find insights, you'll find entertainment. And so for that reason, I recommend the book, because there are various areas that appeal to all of us. The theme of the book comes down to just one word: action. That's all it is. Now, don't take it to be that simple, because action is much broader than that, and Grant covers the reasons why. He focuses on saying, you've underestimated the amount of activity required to help you fulfill your heart's desires. You've underestimated the amount of effort required, the amount of energy you need the amount of resources you need, but more than anything, you've underestimated the amount of opposition and obstacles you're about to face if you really want your dream. And so he says, you must be willing to take 10 times the action that you would have taken just to be able to guarantee your success. Very simple principle. Now, I believe that most of the philosophies and principles of what it takes to live an exceptional life are very simple. We try to make it complicated, but we don't have to. It's simple. We know that we should do more. We know that if we do more, then we have and we create the opportunity to have more. So Grant focuses on encouraging you to 10x your life. Now, I've split this section into two parts. I'm going to share, first of all, the observations that I've gleaned from the book. Hopefully, it's useful for someone. But then I'll share with you, like I said, my personal insights. Now, the first thing that I observed was that reference and the repetition. The reference to 10x and multiply by 10 or 10 times more effort is used so often in the book that the power of repetition leaves you at the end of the book whereby you've heard it so many times and it sticks. You know, repetition is the architect of change. Repetition is the mother of all knowledge and skill and learning. And spaced repetition is really how we learn. And so through the book, there's sections upon sections where reference is made back to the same theme. You have to 10x your efforts. You have to 10x what you're doing. You need more energy. You need more attention to detail. You need bigger goals. So he keeps going on in a nice way, slowly encouraging you on why you should take more action and how you can take more action. So that's the first thing I gleaned from the book. Now, the second was that you have to approach all endeavors and you have to approach all things in your life with the attitude that you will succeed. Very closely, this mirrors something that Robert Schuller said. Robert Schuller was the guy who built the Crystal Cathedral. Remarkable building in its own right, but also the circumstances surrounding the construction and the development of such a magnificent structure. If you read into his life and his history, you find that he was very impressive as an individual. But Robert Schuller said something that I love. Robert Schuller said, "What one thing would you dare to dream if you knew you could not fail?" Very simple, very profound. What would you attempt? What would you attempt if you were guaranteed success? Grant in his book jumps on that same path and says, you have to have the right attitude. You have to believe that it's yours. You have to believe that everything in the universe is set up to help you become who you want to be. But you have to earn it. You've got to put in the work. You have to put in more efforts. You have to give the best service. Slightly, in a way, this shouldn't be seen as a surprise, because you see, the law of compensation, according to Earl Nightingale said that the amount of money you earn will always be in proportion or in ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the level of difficulty there will be in replacing you. Now, you can take all those three things and really summarize it as the quality and the value you create in the marketplace. And so Grant in his book is saying, you have to give more. You've got to really do more. And the focus is less about you. He draws on the importance of recognizing that you have a duty, you have an obligation, you have a responsibility to be the best that you can be. Some people talk about success. I like the word mastery better than I like the word success. And for one simple reason, mastery leads to fulfillment. You can have success in the conventional way that we define it and not be fulfilled. Because success in the conventional way, in terms of achieving, is a science. You follow a series of principles and steps, you obey the laws, you achieve a result. However, fulfillment comes as an art form. It's an art because we're individually unique. And so mastery is all about being the best that you can be. It's about being your best self, and that leads to fulfillment. Now, a lot of what Grant talks about in the book is about you becoming your best self. So it's about mastery. He talks about some of his dreams, some of his goals, some of his challenges, and you can see the consistency in the desire to be the best. So here is the question I want to ask you, and I know this is a book review, but it's my book review, so I can flow and change the sequence however I want. But here is a question for you. If you could be more than you are today, would you? If the answer is yes, then get the book. Now, the third thing that I picked out from the book was this, that you have to associate with great thinkers. Surround yourself with great people. Surround yourself with people who can almost gently propel you towards growth. The power of association is something we underestimate. We underestimate it, sadly, and those who understand the value hold on to it very closely. But here is a wisdom key, a wisdom commentary on a sideline. This is just from me to you. Get into the environment of success. Get close to greatness. Because when you're in the environment of greatness, the fragrance arouses the potential in you. It arouses that genius in you, and that propels you to aspire to become more than you are. And so one of the things I learned from the book is the principle that the more you surround yourself with big players, people who want to see you do well, people who believe that you can do well, the more you find that you can become better than you are. Very simple philosophy. So many people say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I like to take that a step further normally and say you are the average of the 5 people you allow to influence you, your thinking, your feeling, and your actions. Because you can spend time with, imagine you're a single mother or a single father. If you spend all of your time with your kids, in a way that's not really the right, that 5 people you spend the time with doesn't really coincide or agree with that lifestyle you have. But you can spend the most time with your kids. However, you're the kind of person who listens to friends over the phone and you do what they ask you to do. So it's more about the people who influence you rather than the people you spend time with. I know time is influence in terms of presence, but some people underestimate the power and the subtle impact of influence and association. Number 4, I love this. Grant says in a different way, I'm going to paraphrase it. What I took out of this was that we overestimate what we can do in a year. We underestimate what we can do in a lifetime. So in this section of the book, Grant simply says, most people overestimate what they can achieve, which I'm probably guilty of, and we underestimate the amount of resistance we're going to encounter and the amount of obstacles we're going to face. So Grant is saying the reason you have to 10x your activities is simply because you're going to experience setbacks and obstacles and challenges. And as you push, there's something pushing back. You're going to have to push so hard that whatever is pushing back has no other choice but to give way. So the important part of what I love about this section in the book is expect resistance, welcome resistance, but prepare for the resistance so that when it comes, what you have prepared for enables you to overcome whatever obstacle that might be. I'll move quickly. The next thing is a section about obsession. It's a very unique section in the book. Most people will get it. A few others will not get it. The word obsession is somewhat seen negatively. I have a dictionary here, and if I perhaps try and just look at what the word obsession means, I know it has a slightly negative connotation. You'll find that for most people, the word obsession seems to be used, for example, if you're an addict to something negative, that's what we say obsession is. We never associate obsession with something great. But Grant is saying that you have to be obsessed about your greatness. You have to be obsessed about your goals. You have to be obsessed about your purpose. You have to be obsessed about your dreams and your vision. You have to be obsessed in order to be successful. You have to want it so badly. You have to have that burning desire. Think about this. And then in the 1500s, I think approximately 1519, a soldier by the name of Hernan Cortes, now I think it's a Spanish name, so I may not have pronounced it the right way, but he had a burning passion, a burning desire to overcome and to conquer an empire, the Aztec Empire. He loaded all of his men into boats and they traveled across to the enemy's borders for war. Upon arrival at the shore, he gave an instruction. Now forgive me, I'm deviating, I know. He gave an instruction. He said, I want you to unload all of the boats. Bring out all of the equipment that we need. Have all the men disembark from the ships and the boats. And then he gave an order. He said, I want you to burn all of the boats. Burn all of it. Now, as the boats were going up in flames behind, he stood before his men and he gave a speech. I want to talk about one of the things he said. He said, can you see the boats going up in flames? This means that we can't live here alive. We either win or we perish. There is no retreat. It's forward only. We either die or we conquer. Now he inspired the men with that speech and they marched on and they succeeded. Now that is an extreme of perhaps a desire, burning passion. But here is the point. What is your life worth? You see, every day, what you do every day represents something that you're exchanging your life for. So, one of the things I tend to suggest to people is be selective about what you spend your time doing. Because at the end of your life, that represents what you gave your life for. So, choose your goals and your dreams in such a way that you know that they are deserving of you. Be selective. And if you choose the right goals, because you're exchanging your life for it, there's nothing wrong with being obsessed with making that goal a reality. There's nothing wrong with you being obsessed about being the best father you can be, being the best mother you could be, being the best lover, being the best entrepreneur, being the best investor. There's nothing wrong with you being obsessed with your greatness. I think for me, probably that was one of the most powerful parts of the book. He says you have to be obsessed. Everyone else might call you OCD, ADHD, that you're compulsive, you're obsessive. People might frown at you, but you have to realize that you're going against logic. But think about this. Today, me and you can fly from one continent to another in a few hours because two brothers were obsessed about an idea. The Wright brothers. People said it was impossible to fly. As a matter of fact, you may not really be aware of this, but the Wright brothers were sons of a bishop. Bishop Wright was the father of the Wright brothers. And the Sunday before they took flight, their father preached and said, that it's impossible for man to fly. That if God wanted man to fly, he would have created flight. And that for his sons to have had that idea that they were filled with the devil and they would burn in hell. Can you imagine that? Logic said it was impossible, but they were obsessed and they achieved their dreams. And so today, we can fly across continents and countries, and we can travel to see loved ones and friends in a fraction of the time it would have taken. We've discovered new land. We have people going to the moon now. We're discovering new planets. Why? Because some people had an obsession about reaching their highest potential. What about you? You need to get this book. Because when you read certain sections of the book, it's like the eureka moment. Something just clicks and you realize, aha, that's the reason why I've been resting on my laurels. I've been reducing my standards because I've been trying to conform to logic and other people's opinion. Reading the book, you find an emotional attachment with Grant in such a way that you now realize, I found my tribe. I found someone who understands how I feel sometimes, but I've been suppressing that feeling. And so you find an association, an affiliation to push and pursue that dream you have. Obsession. Let it be a healthy one. Now, I picked up my diary, my dictionary, to read what it says about obsession. Obsession, it says that obsess, preoccupy compulsively. You see, even the word compulsively suggests a negative connotation. But you have to understand, in the context of the 10x rule, the obsession has to be a healthy obsession. It's about passion. Now think about this. It's not about desire, because desire is something that you want. Passion and obsession is something that you're not willing to live without. So what are you willing to live without? Are you willing to accept the fact that you would never become your best self? Are you willing to get to the age of 90 and 95 and be like some of the people who look back at life and say, I wish I had the courage to have taken on a little bit more risk. I wish I had lived the life I knew that I could have lived. I wish I had given it a go. Well, you have the opportunity now. Study, gain understanding, gain insight, increase your understanding and awareness, and then apply the techniques written in the book. They're quite helpful. Now, the next I want to talk about is goal setting. I'll talk about it briefly because there's much to say about the goal setting section. It's very, very comprehensive. And Grant says that the most common reason why people do not achieve their goals is because they set them too low. Les Brown said, shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you fall amongst the stars, which I thought was very clever, very neat. But if you aim at nothing, you shoot and you achieve nothing. And so Grant says, dream big. Now, in the section about dream big and goals, I'm going to hold off on sharing my insights because I have a personal view about the goal setting section. I'll leave it till the end, so stay tuned. I hope I remember. But in the goal section, there's a lot of content. Let me tell you what I love the most about that section before I'll probably repeat some of this later on. But when I talk about the insights, I'll expand. I like the principle. I learned something from Brian Tracy so many years ago. He said, in the morning, sit down and, well, it was a combination of Brian Tracy and Jim Rohn. You know, Jim Rohn was one of the guys who really understood goal setting, and he has a very unique philosophy about life and living. Brian Tracy had also a very unique style of teaching, but also a level of wisdom that was quite interesting. But learning from Brian Tracy so many years ago was the principle that at the start of the day, decide what you want. Sit down and make a list of your the goals you want to achieve for that day. Write it down, and that gives you a focus for the day. And at the end of the day, sit down and review what you said you were going to do, and do two things: identify what you did right, and identify what you could have done differently, which I thought was a neat concept. Jim Rohn taught me about how to choose and select and set and achieve goals. Grant brings this in a different way. He says, when you've decided your goals, you have to get into the habit of writing your goals down every day. Now, I understood that from Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy, write your goals down, and I used to do it. But I found that reading Grant's book, he had a different concept, which was neat and new. So I used to write my goals down first thing in the morning. Very easy. I also had my goals converted to pictures so that during the day I could flick through the pictures and get inspired. In the evening, I would also review my goals. But Grant says, write your goals down first thing in the morning. Write your goals down before you go to bed. But I love what he says next. He says, every time I lose, every time I go through the day and I encounter a setback, an obstacle, something that takes my focus away from my obsession and my mission and my purpose, I rewrite my goals down. I tried this once, and I have to tell you how powerful this is. Most people think of it as though it's just an exercise. It's not. Grant doesn't talk about it in the book in that level of detail, but I know within my heart that probably that's what he really meant to share. Wherever your focus goes, your attention and your energy moves in that direction. When we think in pictures. We think in pictures. So your thoughts will decide your feelings. Your feelings can only be expressed through your body by action. Your actions, if repeated, sometimes will form habits, but create your results. So if you want to change your results, you have to change your thoughts. However, what controls your thoughts? Very simple. What you see, what you hear, the influence you have around you, and the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Very simple. So when I started applying this, I found that there will be days when I struggle, where I feel my morale is low, when I feel that I'm pushing so hard and the resistance is just too much. Maybe I failed to achieve something, a deal didn't fall through, I was disappointed with something I was expecting. And in those moments, I tend to focus on the negatives. I focus on having been disappointed. By rewriting my goals, I change my focus. I bring my focus and my thoughts and my mind in alignment with the future that I want. Now here is this is the beauty. Mind and speech are the two most important gifts we have as human beings. Mind and speech. In the mind, we have our imagination. Our imagination creates reality. The more you impress that picture or that image in your imagination, the more the pathway to achieving what you want is made visible to you. So every day we're creating our future by what we're putting in our imagination, by thoughts. So you have to discipline yourself, and writing and rewriting your goals is a method whereby you can control, one, your speech. Speech refers to internal thoughts or spoken words. So you might say one of your goals is, you might say, let's make it tangible. You might say, I own maybe 4 real estate investments that create a positive cash flow and a yield and a return of maybe 15% on average. That is measurable, that's a goal. That could be something that is your goal. By saying it often and often and often, it becomes your dominant thoughts. And here is something interesting. King Solomon said that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Now the heart in that statement is not referring to your heart. Ancient Greeks called the heart, they call the mind the heart. So as a man thinks in his mind, so is he. As you think, so you become. So rewriting your goals down is a powerful way to refocus and change your internal thoughts, change your speech, correct your mind so you can achieve your goal. Now, I've deviated a lot so far in talking about this. I'm going to try and come back to the book review, but I think part of the book review is meant to be informative and educational. So forgive me if I've deviated and I'm rambling on and on and on. I hope you're finding something of value. The great writer Paul said, "Be ye not conformed to this world, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind." In other words, when things happen to you that you don't like, go back and change the mind. Change those pictures in the mind. And rewriting your goal in the morning to give you focus, to give you inspiration. Rewriting your alignment is a method of renewing your mind. Rewriting in the evening is a way of what I call revising the day. So you've looked at the whole day and you said, all of that may have happened, but in my imagination, it's all perfect. Let me move from that because there's much I have to share with you. The next thing I picked out was, this is where I'll stop. There's just so much I've written down, but I think I've taken much of your time. I want to move on to what I personally have gained in reading the book. The final thing I want to talk about is he says you must master yourself before you can dominate your sector, before you can dominate your life. Here is the point. Self-awareness. It's very important. Grant says you've got to be self-aware. You've got to recognize what you have as strengths, what you have as gifts and talents and skills, but also areas that perhaps you're not really great at. And the key is to focus on all your strengths and forget your weaknesses by using leverage. So the key here is he's saying you've got to dominate yourself, and dominating yourselves begins with your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. The point of that section of the book is this: you can only give what you have. You can only give what you have. So you must be a person of substance to be able to give substance. I said earlier on that the law of compensation says that what you earn will always be in proportion to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there will be in replacing you. And all of that deals with you being your best self. And you can only reproduce who you are. So that's where I'll stop for now. Let me share some insights because there's so much gems of wisdom in the book, but I want to share perhaps a few things that I took out from the book and I've started applying in my personal life, and I can see good results, and also things that I knew previously that I can confirm that those words of wisdom work. Now the first is I previously used to have this concept of the work-life balance, that you had to have your life balanced, which is in itself a ludicrous thing to suggest, because you can't have balance. There's no such thing as balance. And when I read the book initially, I thought about the 10x. If Grant is saying 10x what you do at work, that means if I have to 10x, I have to put in 10 times more effort. Most people will mistake that 10 times more effort depending on where they are at present. In some cases, it doesn't mean you have to put in 10 times more work. It just means you have to be 10 times more committed. You have to have 10 times more focus. You have to be present. Now, one of the most important parts of what I loved about the book is this. Grant talks about his commitment to work. And I've always struggled with, how do you balance doing what you love to do, hustling as an individual, but also taking care of a family? And how do you balance all of that, especially if you have kids? And I was uniquely impressed by something that I learned from him, which was, it's not how much time you spend, it's the quality of your presence. It's the quality, is bringing all of you into the moment. So for example, you might spend 10 hours at work and just 30 minutes with your family. But when you're with your family, bring all of you into the conversation, bring all of you into the experience. You shut down the doors of all other areas or categories of your life, business, finances, health, and you focus all of you, and you listen. You listen, you observe, you learn, you emotionally connect. Now think about this. This is powerful. We hear with our ear. We listen with our emotions, with our heart. I'll say that again. We hear with our ears, but we listen with our emotions, with our hearts. You can only really listen when you're present. So we could be having a conversation, but you have so many thoughts in your mind and you're still in the office. Perhaps you're having a conversation with your boss that was unfinished, but you're here with me and I'm saying something to you, but your mind is distracted. You have too many minds. So you're not present. You're not really listening. You're hearing me, but you're not listening. And I read that section of the book and I felt, this is powerful. It's not about the amount of time. It's the quality of your consciousness when you're present. Because you and I can only receive what we have the consciousness to receive. And so the key part of this was, for me, was forget the concept of work-life balance. But whatever you do, give it your best. It's really that simple. Second thing I picked out was attention is the new currency. You have to get people's attention first before you can influence them. Influence being in a positive way, obviously. And so if you don't have the ability to grab attention, then you've lost by default. Now that's a struggle in my case, because the nature of my line of work and business is I'm sharing this, I'm trying to raise awareness and raise attention. And I took away something from the book, which was, you have to learn the art of how to get people's attention and hold people's attention. It's not something they teach you in school, especially if you're trying to do it the right way. If you're trying to do it ethically, if you're trying to do it morally, if you're trying to do it in a way that you feel confident and proud of yourself. There's so many ways to grab attention. You can be sensational in your style, but if you really want to leave a good legacy and do it the right way, then you have to learn the art. And then this is perhaps not perhaps the right time to perhaps plug in a book that I will do a review on, but it's worth getting if you have never read it. It's called The Art of Acting by Stella Adler. Powerful book. She mentored Marlon Brandon, and he wrote the foreword to the book. Probably worth reading. But she tries to tell you and teach you that the world is a stage. You might say, that's not my style, that's not who I am, but who really defined your personality? Your personality can be changed every day. As long as you're not letting go of your values and your true core beliefs. There's nothing wrong with adapting who you are to be able to get your message out. You have to learn the art of acting. So I love that part of the book with Grant where he talks about attention being the new currency. Now, this plays in nicely with another thing where he says, the problem you have is obscurity. I don't know who you are. And if I don't know who you are, I can't buy your services, I can't buy your products. If your customers do not know who you are, or did not get to know who you are, then they would never have been your customer. So Grant is saying you've got to learn how to be omnipresent. In other words, be in all places or be in many places at the same time. And he gives ways of how you have to push your product, push your message, push your mission so hard so that it falls on so many people. It follows the concept or the principle of the parable of the sower. A farmer went out to sow, and he cast his seeds. Some fell amongst the rocky ground, where the soil was shallow. Some fell amongst the thorn, and the thorns choked it to death. Some fell along the wayside, but eventually some fell on good ground, and they produced much fruit. It follows that the law of averages that says if you do something regularly, that you get to a point where you have a predicted level of success of what you do. And so Grant is saying here, you have to push your information, your brand, your company, your products, your services, push it hard and just spread it all over the place, because it will fall on various grounds and someone will pick up what you have, and that could be good soil, which I thought was great. Obscurity is the problem. I don't know you, and if I don't know you, I can't do business with you, and I can't actually even trade with you. I found that to be, and I still find it to be a little bit challenging, because it's I struggle with how you break through obscurity the right way, and I found it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes efforts, but it also takes study. And so one of the things I'm trying to do is to model people who are good at getting their message across. The next thing I had is, let me conclude and talk about, I have a lot of things here. This is so good. The section where he says success is important. Don't try to belittle success. It's your duty, it's your obligation, it's your responsibility. I thought that's profound. Forget, you can replace that word success, because Grant emphasizes a point. He says success is closing the gap between who you are today and your ultimate potential. As you move towards your ultimate potential, that's success. So in principle, what he's talking about is greatness. It's achievement. It's about becoming your best self. It's mastery. He calls it success, and I think it's a great definition. But I love that statement. It's your duty, it's your obligation, it's your responsibility. Now let me conclude with a statement. I talked about goals, and for some people might be of a different view or different opinion that you shouldn't set your goals too big, because Grant certainly suggests that you should set your goals too big. 10x your goals is what he says. And when I read the section, it resonated with me a lot. Why? I found over the last number of years that I've had a varying level of success, but also a varying level of fulfillment and happiness. And part of that has been because every time I sit down, if I want to set a goal, because I'm being held back by logic, I tend to start off by setting goals. This is what I used to do. I would set goals that I knew I could achieve. So for example, let's say you live in a 2-bedroom house. You set a goal that you want to buy another 2-bedroom house in the same locality, maybe a better looking house with a little bit more space, but it's still a 2-bedroom house in the same area. Because you've achieved the first goal, you own a house right now, you know how to do it. Therefore, setting a goal to buy another 2-bedroom house or move into a bigger 2-bedroom house is not really a goal, because you know how to do it. And that doesn't allow you to be inspired because you know how to do it. That's just how the mind works. So I used to be one of those people who would set goals based on what I had done in the past and where I had succeeded, because I knew that I had certainty in what I could do. But I found that I had very little hope and inspiration because it wasn't powerful enough. Then I transitioned into setting goals that were bigger than what I would normally set, but they were still based on goals that I could foresee the steps. If I do this and I do this and someone does this and I do this, I can achieve it. For example, I want to hold a conference or a seminar. I have a desire to have a certain amount of money. So I say, well, if I price it at this number and I have X number of people attend, then I can achieve the goal. But to have X number of people attend, I have to advertise to X number of people. So I have all the sequence and steps and the chronology of how things can fall into place. And that in itself also means you're doing things that you kind of know you can achieve if you put in the work. Finally, I started coming to the understanding that both were not my true desires and wants. And I can guarantee, now this is a long statement to make and a bold statement I want to make. Very few people are really living the life they want to live. I fall into that same category. I'm trying to transition out of that category because it's only been not too long ago that I suddenly dawned on me that I've got to go against logic. Very few people are living the life they really want. Ask people, what do you want? They set their goals based on what they've done in the past, what they believe they can do. Very few people have the boldness to set their goals based on what they really want. You and I can have whatever we want if we have the courage to ask for it, if we have the faith and expectation to support that request, and if, this is powerful, this is so powerful. I think this is more than anything, I wish I learned this very young. If you have the courage to ask, if you have the faith and expectation that it would come to you, and if you have the consciousness to receive it, because you and I can only receive what we have the consciousness to receive, meaning you have to take action. And I found that for so many years that I always, whenever I had a dream of what I wanted, I would always think about how can I get it? And the how to limited my start in the journey. So I would lower the bar and I would lower the bar and I would lower the bar until it got to a place whereby I had done it before, or I kind of could see the steps to achieve it. And so Grant says 10x your goals. Now the 10x your goals he refers to, for most people, that is just saying to you, pursue your true desire, pursue your wants. Don't reduce the bar, keep it where it is. Go for it and figure out how to get there, because no one has ever achieved a big enough dream that they knew how they were going to get there. You learn along the way. Take the first step. And Grant is saying, set big goals and go for it. Put in 10x action. If you do, you can achieve it. And I found, this is something I knew before, but reading the book, it came together because I realized that the 10x is not about taking 10x action. It's really about living. It's saying to you, wake up and live. Live that desire. You might not know how to get it. Take a step. Henry David Thoreau said, if a person will advance confidently in the direction of their dreams, and if they will endeavor to live the life that they have imagined, just endeavor to live that life you've imagined, you will meet with success in uncommon hours. Very powerful. In other words, you don't have to know everything. Just take massive action. Take a leap. Jump and then grow your wings on the way down. Now that's all I'm going to talk about today. I'm sorry it's been much longer than I normally would spend. But I'll say this as I close. There are some people who have a varied level of experience in life. and who want to share their experiences. And there are some people who are good at sharing those experiences, and people who are good teachers, people who will come across as good mentors. I think Grant Cardone falls into that category. He has a passion. He loves to teach. He loves to share. And he has a desire for people to become more and do more. And the investment you make in the book, I think, is worth your energy and time and efforts and your money. I think so. But more than anything, let me recommend something else beyond that. Let me recommend that you look him up on YouTube if you haven't. I can assure you of something. He's quite an interesting fella, and he has a unique philosophy about life and living that will certainly stretch your thinking. Remember this: get around the environment of success and greatness, and let the fragrance arouse the potential you have within you. There's a sleeping genius within you. That fragrance of success and greatness will arouse and awaken that genius. And I think investing some time and some of your energy in looking through some of the YouTube or the video content will do you much good. Let me wish you the best of luck.